Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our fourth and final stream of the day, concluding with the 2025 NHL mock draft picks 1 to 32. The entirety of the first round will be running through all the prospects who are coming your way for the real world NHL draft less than a week away now. It's an exciting time as we have some special guests along for the ride tonight. We'll have some guests who are channel members here on the channel. So that's when I say channel perks, the perks for the channel members. This is one of those moments right now. So some of our channel members who have been not just involved in the comments, but also involved by supporting the channel by joining on as a member. I'm saying the word member and channel up. That's what they're called here on YouTube. And one of the perks is that we have our own Discord conversation. And in there, we've been discussing having a mock draft, all taking different teams and being responsible for that. And not just making picks on, okay, who are the best players, who's going to go here, who's going to go there. We're actually trying to build, as being responsible for our teams, the best possible prospect pool. Welcome aboard, everybody. Hobbsy, we got Dabrowskego in here, Intelligent Dice, Sky, Mackenzie, Average Isles fan, Mark. Welcome aboard. Yeah, there wasn't much content this week. So before you decided on a marathon today to catch up before heading out at the end of the week. Exactly. So a lot going on the channel. What's going to be going, the format of this evening is not going to be like how it goes for a normal draft. So we're going to do things a bit different than how my normal draft coverage goes, since it is a mock draft. The way it's going to go is we'll have this little we'll have central scouting. We'll be keeping an eye on central scouting over here. We'll have hockey DB on the side. We'll also be keeping track of the picks that are made according to the spreadsheet, which team is here and who is representing that team. So Hobbsy, Jiggles, Michaelak, Dice, Golden, myself kind of representing Derek, different people who are channel members here at Data782. We're making their pick, talking a little bit about who they're selecting and why, and then I'll pull up my draft guide from Elite Prospects and talk a little bit about that prospect as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hobbsy has the first pick. We're going to try, hopefully there's no hiccups here. We'll do our best. I'm going to go ahead and add Hobbsy to the stage. Hobbsy, good evening and welcome to the podium.
Hello, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So you got lucky with the first overall pick here. You yourself are not an Islanders fan, but you have the first overall pick here.
Mike sounds all good. We're good to go.
Yeah, everything sounds good. Do you hear me as well?
All right. Yeah, so I drew the first overall pick, and I think it's fairly consensus where the Islanders are going to go, unless they trade it. But I'm going to take Matthew Schaefer from the Erie Otters.
Very good. You want to talk a little bit about Matthew Schaefer and about him as a player and how he fits with the Islanders?
Yeah, so he fits with the Islanders. He's consensus number one ranked prospect across the board. He's a strong offensive defenseman. He was really good for Canada at the World Juniors until he crashed in the goalpost and took out his shoulder.
Right.
With Erie, he played 17 games and had 22 points. Offensive defenseman. And the Islanders, they need a defenseman because I don't know what they're going to do with Dobson, Romanov. They're both RFAs.
Sure.
I think they took Yzerman last year, so I think they have more forwards in their system than blue liners at the moment. I think Schaefer makes the most sense for the Islanders here.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that it's not like, I wouldn't say he's like the hands down number one, but he seems to be like, for the most part, the agreed upon number one guy. I'd say at least for the majority of where you look. And this is a guy who has played, less than 80 games in the OHL over the last 2 years. So what they have seen from him has been impressive enough. People are impressed enough by that. And so we're going a little bit now, if we dive into the Elite Prospects guide, we see, always the elevator pitch. Yes, the elevator pitch. So elevator pitch on Matthew Schaefer is that he is an overwhelmingly skilled and dynamic play-driving talent with unmatched developmental runway. So they broke out the thesaurus for this one. All the makings of a franchise-altering number one defenseman in the NHL. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at prospects. I get into it around draft time, but I'm not watching OHL, WHL, overseas. I'm not watching it during the years, honestly. Like, this is the time when I get into it. And as much as I love Matthew Schaefer, I'm not going to start talking down about him, but I don't know if I would call him, a franchise-altering number one defenseman. Watch me look silly in 10 years with all of his Norris trophies. I think he'll be a very good defenseman. Don't get me wrong at all. And he's going to be exactly what the Islanders need, that too, with them winning the draft lottery. But I'm not sure. Am I crazy to say that's overhyping it? I don't know. What do you think, Hobbsy?
I don't think it's crazy. I think he's gonna be a solid top pairing defenseman. I think number one. I think he'll be maybe a low end number one.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably I could see him Dobson tier. They'll probably want him a little better, taking him first overall, but I think he'll pan out fairly well for the Islanders.
Okay. Very good. Well, not too much surprise there in that selection from you. And we'll hear from you again as you also control the Seattle Kraken at the 8th overall selection.
Can I just chime in with one more thing here?
Yes, absolutely.
I see in the chat that Average Isles fan says Hobbsy pick Hagens. I could see the Islanders trading back with Utah possibly.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about this mock draft. Sorry to interrupt you. Just this mock draft is so contingent on so many things because there's been a ton. I can't remember a recent draft that has this much trade chatter. So there's a lot that could still change.
There's been a lot. I don't think the Islanders would take Hagens at 1, but I could see them trading back to 4 to take him.
Yeah, definitely possible. Well, thank you, Hobbsy. We'll see you again for pick number 8.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So moving on to the next selection, it comes to Jiggles and the Sharks. Jiggles couldn't make it at least for this selection. He might be in for the later selections like Buffalo at 9. But at number 2, it was pretty simple for him. He told me either it's going to be Schaefer or Misa. So assuming that Schaefer goes number 1, Michael Misa, it comes down to him being the highest ranked forward as the next tier of defense is relatively there's a steep drop off in defense from Schaefer, the next tier. So going for the next forward, the guy who had a phenomenal season in the CHL is the move here. However, Jiggles also woke up to an article this morning about the noise around Frondell. I've been hearing about that too, potentially, or at least the Sharks having a discussion about Frondell over Misa, albeit they'll likely still take Misa, in my opinion, says Jiggles. If you want me to be spicy, maybe I could go Frondell. But honestly, Jiggles thinks that Matthew Misa is that, Michael Misa, Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa. Michael Misa would be the pick here for the Sharks. So let's pull up some information on him from the Elite Prospects Guide. It's a very long guide. So Michael Misa, who is a dynamic play-driving dual threat scoring center with exceptional details, contact skills, and machine-like motor, one of the most well-rounded forwards to come out of the OHL in years. On top of that, there's also tool grades. I didn't get into this yet on Schaefer, but there's tool grades from 1.0 to 9.0. He has 7.5 in the sense, 7.0 for skating, shooting, passing, and handling, and 6.5 for physical. So very well-rounded. This season we saw Macklin Celebrini step into the NHL and immediately impose his will over shifts. The same could happen with Michael Misa, the most detailed, driven, and complete player in the draft. So would that be just continuing on the abundance of riches, the embarrassment of riches that the Sharks are starting to have? Absolutely. I don't want to go too deep on every single player since there's 32 picks and it's not the actual draft just yet. We'll say that for draft night coverage, but there is the selection for Jiggles at number 2. We now move to selection number 3. Mike Lack, a Bruins fan, but he's controlling the Chicago Blackhawks here. Mike Lack, welcome aboard.
Hey, Dada, how we doing, boss man?
Doing all right, my friend. I like your profile picture there.
Yeah, man, got to rep the channel. Got my flag up in the office, and that's where I'm at for this. So just ready to have some fun with the guys and talk NHL draft.
Love it. I believe this was your idea as well, if I remember correctly. So thank you for making it, pushing that to make it happen. I'm glad that it did end up happening. And, now you got to think about this because Mike Lack, as a Bruins fan, picks at 7. But before that, he represents the Blackhawks at 3. So Schaefer gone, Misa gone. Where's Chicago going at number 3?
I don't think this is a very hard decision for Chicago. And I say that because they're one of the teams that could very well trade out of this spot, whether that's trading down or just trading the pick outright altogether for a position player in the NHL. But if they stay pat and the board goes the way it has, I think they're going to draft Anton Frondell.
Anton Now, you want to talk a little bit about him, or do you want to leave that to more my end?
Yeah, so like I think Frundell's a really good two-way player. He's one of the few center prospects in this draft that's already at NHL size. He's about 6'1". He's over 200 pounds. So he's got the body. And I think, if Bedard stays at center and he centers your first line, you're going to want somebody who can play second line, whether that's, first power play with Bedard, but you also want a guy that's going to eat up some of that penalty kill minutes. So Frundell's two-way game is going to pair well with that. And then I think with the move Chicago made last offseason, they brought in a bunch of seasoned wingers. Frundell, even though he's not going to play, I don't think, in the NHL this season, he's got guys to come into the league and learn from. So you've got bruisers like Bertuzzi playing, but you've got skill guys like Teravainen. And so he's got the cast there to step in next season, and eventually slot up to a 2C. I think Anton's got a fantastic shot. I think it's underrated, especially with him playing out in the SHL with, goodness, I can't remember his name now. Winger prospect, brother plays for San Jose. Eklund, thank you.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a fantastic shot. His two-way game highlights. He's physical in the corners. So I think he'll pair well as a two center behind Bedard.
Very good. Yeah, looking at his profile here on the Elite Prospects sheet, they actually have him ranked 13th, but I think that the consensus that he's definitely going like top 7. I think it would be crazy to see Frundell go anywhere else, but I could definitely see the case for him going at 3 as well. They say shades of Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, and Brock Nelson, all New York Islanders. Interesting. And the elevator pitch on him is an overpowering two-way forward with a high-end release and off-puck instincts around the slot. Upside hinges on play driving and playmaking skill. So he has the 7.0 for the shooting on a scale of 1 to 9. After that, Elite Prospects sees him, actually, by the way, 7.5 physical. But aside from that, 5.5 senses, 5.0 skating. So there's things to work on in his game. But to finish off my thoughts here, this time last year, Frundell was viewed by many as a legitimate contender for the first overall pick, as I'm reading off of Elite Prospects here. There was some pain through the first starts, the beginnings of his season in the SHL, but the second half of the year represented his breakthrough in the Allsvenskan. And, he's a versatile shooter, as you spoke about. He has a lot of skill. Now, is he going to be able to pick up those small areas that he lacks and combine them with the areas in which he exceeds so well, and turn him into that higher end 2C as you're talking about?
And I like Frundell. I like the comps for him. But like when I look at him as compared to like a Caleb Denwyer, I think that there's more of an offensive upside with Frundell. And with the type of offense that Chicago's wanting to build around Bedard, I just think with that offensive upside, still has that two-way game. He just slots in real well with Chicago.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll put Anton Frundell at number 3 to Chicago, and we'll see you back for the pick, the Bruins pick at number 7. So we'll move on to Intelligent Dice now. Dice, welcome aboard, representing the Utah Mammoth, a Penguins fan himself, but having to represent Utah here. Thankfully, not too close to each other, so I think this pick can be made with honesty attached to it. Dice, what are you thinking here for pick number 4? And welcome as well to the stream. Thanks for making it out.
Thanks and good evening. I mean, is there a team that came out better in the lottery other than the Islanders than Utah? This team was so close to making the playoffs last year. They jump up 10 spots to number 4 overall. And sure, they're not going to get one of the top of the tier players here in a rather weak draft class, but they're going to get a fantastic piece here to set them up for the future if they keep this pick.
Oh, yeah.
But in this world, they do, and I get to make it. And so I'm going to take Caleb Denwyer out of the queue because this guy will do all of the little things that it takes to win. And that is something this franchise has not done very much of. This is the opportunity to get a really solid 2C to play behind Logan Cooley, to take on the hard matchups, to free him and Gunther to do their thing in the offensive zone. He's going to be a great piece. They have some other young guys coming, like Daniil Butt and Dmitry Shimashev, so they're going to have a lot of size on the front and back ends to pair with Desnoyers, who's not small, but I think Desnoyers is a good piece for them to get here.
What's so funny is that if you just told me, like, there's this guy, he's a prospect, and he's playing in the QMJHL, and he's French, and his name's Caleb Desnoyers, I'd say, okay, he's like a 5'9" left wing playmaker or something. But no, the guy's he's almost 6'2". He's a 200-foot center, and I think it's part of that as QMJHL maybe bias in some of our minds, especially me seeing so much QMJHL action. But yeah, this would not be crazy. It's surprising. I'm a bit surprised to have that he goes at 4, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him in this range here. Elite Prospects has him in that 6 to 12 range and says shades of Sean Couturier. And the elevator pitch on him is a detailed 200-foot center with a hard-nosed net front game, deceptive open ice playmaking, and flashes of a power forward game. More pace is required. So he has the passing, the sense, the physical, handling and shooting pretty good. The skating has to come along as well. You see that the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is at the Combine, we learned he was playing most of the season with some hurt wrists.
Right.
So his scoring could improve if he gets to play healthy and his shot gets better because he actually has his wrists.
True. Desnoyers ranked 7th amongst North American skaters. And it's so interesting that I think I'm speaking as like just someone with zero head office knowledge here, but I think once it gets to 4 is where things really open up. I don't, who knows?
Yeah.
Hagens goes at 2 or whoa, what's happening? But I think it definitely goes Schaefer, then a mix of Misa Frondel, and then you could switch those two. I think from 4 to, like, I don't know, 9, 10, whatever, something like that. You could see Martone, you could see Desnoyers, you could see whoever is high, you could see Jake O'Brien, you could see whoever is going to be higher up on someone's list, and who's going to bite first, who's scared, who's hearing something, who's willing to drop down and take that risk. So if Utah loves Desnoyers here, him going at 4 wouldn't be crazy. But if you told me it a few months ago, I'd say, like, whoa, no chance. So it's been interesting how things have developed through the interview processes, and the Combine and everything that's come out over the last few weeks.
You can say the same thing about Brady Martin, who is also rumored to be a Utah target.
Yes.
And so Brady Martin could be a top 5 pick. If you want him, maybe you need to call Utah and make a trade. Yeah,
that is a very good point. Brady Martin at 4 it would surprise me even more 2 weeks ago than Desnoyers, but you tell me now, and it sounds like something that's very possible. So we'll leave Caleb Desnoyers there for pick number 4, leaving lots of talent for Golden and Nashville. So Dice, we'll come back to you soon with your next selection. Thank you very kindly. We'll move now to Golden Gamer, who's selecting on behalf of the Nashville Predators. Golden, welcome aboard, and thanks for being here.
Good to see you, my friend. Good to be here.
Always good to chat with you, Golden. Golden, and by the way, let's just put it out there. A big thank you to Golden, who was like my unofficial co-host in our last. Was it the free? No, that was the trade deadline, right?
Yeah.
It was great having you. I'm happy to be back with you again, my friend. So with pick number 5, go ahead and let the world know who's coming to Nashville.
All right, Nashville Predators. A very difficult season, and I want to say thank you very much, Dice. You have not made my pick very easy because I was flip-flopping between 2 guys, and you've kept both of them available for me. So I'm just gonna have to roll with something, take a pick, and I'm thinking for the Predators, based on the team that they've got, I am having them take James Hagens.
Okay. James Hagens drops to 5. I say drop because, again, I keep saying if you asked me 2 months ago, not even a year ago, if you asked me 2 months ago, I'm thinking like Schaefer, Hagens, Misa, maybe it's my top 3 or something. Again, I'm not a scout, but from what I was hearing, from what I was reading, I thought Hagens was definitely top 3 and 4 would be kind of crazy, but now 5. And what's even crazier is that I wouldn't be shocked to see him go to 6 or 7. I don't think he gets past there. I think that might be pushing it a little bit, but to think that he might go 5, 6, 7 when he was definitely going to go 2, 3 is showing you the dynamic nature of this draft class.
Absolutely.
You want to talk a little about Hagens here? Do you have anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
For sure. Hagens, I want to, like, I've been looking at what he can do, and it was tough between the 2 guys that I was choosing between. Hagens, 37 games, 37 points, point per game pace, but I want to say like a very kind of 2-way forward base. If you look at like what Nashville has in terms of forwards, I'm looking as well like They've got a bunch of prospects coming in, David Edstrom, Joakim Kemmel, but off of those two itself, not many high-end forwards. And yeah, Edstrom's a center, but when you look at like with the team coming up, not a whole lot of prospect centers in there. You could see a guy like Hagen's coming in to be a guy who could take over for a Steven Stamkos, a Ryan O'Reilly very quickly. With a guy like Fyodor Sveshkov in there, Leroux, some of those guys, you pair him with somebody like Luke Evangelista, and I think you could set up for a very nasty combo between those two. A very high-end center could really help. I could see him being a really good like second line piece for the Predators in the top 6.
I could even I could see him first line even. You never know what might happen. But yeah, I could. But on a team like Nashville, that's the thing. A second liner on a team that already has established players. But when I think about the Predators and who is in their system for center, I literally cannot think of anyone aside from Sveshkov, and even he's like a center winger.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And even like Zachary Leroux is also like a center winger. So I don't know if I'm blanking on somebody, but I just can't think of like any other Predators prospects at center.
No,
so
that's
a huge help for them.
Yeah, that Edstrom is basically the only other center prospect.
So there you go.
Like that.
I think Hagen's, of all our picks, aside from like Schaefer and Misa, and it's going to get messy in the teens and all that, I think Hagen's at 5 to Nashville makes a lot of sense because I don't think he goes as high as 3 to Chicago. I don't think Utah is as high on him in from what we're hearing between Denoyer and Martin and all that. I think there's like an 80% chance goes to Nashville. And if not, then it leaves a 20% chance that he definitely goes to Philly at 6.
Absolutely. And if I'm Nashville, I am pouncing on that opportunity. No pun intended.
Yeah. Ashley says, I remember even a year ago, he was the consensus number 1. Yeah, I remember that when I was creating my rosters on like NHL 3 and NHL 24. Definitely has changed quite a bit, but still very solid. So there's a lot to say about James Hagens and what happened over the past year. I don't want to turn it into every prospect getting 20 minutes or we'll be here all night. But there's a lot that has changed in the sentiment, I guess, around James Hagens. The elevator pitch on him is dynamic skating, handling, and a full scoring arsenal could make the former number 1 overall favorite a steal if he returns to his play driving ways. Shades of Logan Cooley and Jack Hughes, so very high praise there. Physical, not as high, but high 7.0 for skating, passing, handling, and senses on the scale of 1.0 to 9.0. And yeah, there's a lot to say on Hagens, but I'm going to stop there. I think we've said a good amount, and we'll save the further discussions for when the actual draft comes around. Because we're already at 20 minutes for 5 people. I don't want to keep people up past their bedtime. So, Golden, we'll see you back for pick number 10 to Anaheim.
All right.
Thank you, Golden. Now we're going to move over to Derek's pick. Derek is not able to be here at the moment. Maybe he'll be able to hop in later on. Derek, the Twitter extraordinaire at Suitable Alias, and writer for the Liberty Yell. He is a fantastic source of hockey knowledge. Flyers fan, so that's why he wants to make this Flyers pick, of course. And he told me, first choice, Hagens, doubt he's there, but next pick would be, let me just pull up his information so I'm ready to talk about him right away because I'm doing 2 jobs at once here. Let me get it there. Perfect, I'm ready. That pick would be, drum roll, Jake O'Brien. So Jake O'Brien going to the Philadelphia Flyers in this pick for Derek. Elevator pitch on him is a deceptive and smooth playmaking center with high-end vision, a detailed approach, and lots of physical runway left. Improved pace could make him a top 6 center. Over his scores, 8.0 out of 9 for the handling. Sorry, for the passing, which is the highest we've seen in a little bit here. 7 for the handling, but lower on the shooting, the skating, the physicals. There's still more work to be done. Ranked 10th by elite prospects, but Derek has him going here at 6 to the Flyers. There's not a more generous player in the draft class than Jake O'Brien. Passing is his first, second, and third play. Displaying close to X-ray vision, he spots the tiniest seams between skates, under sticks, and above them. He sees through multiple defenders and behind his back, spotting teammates running at the back post and attacking a few steps late. His playmaking is second to none in the draft class. And in terms of creativity, he may be in a tier of his own. So there's definitely more to say about Jake O'Brien, but there's a lot to be excited about if you're the Flyers, and they definitely, yes, need a centerman. They really want a center, and there you go. That would be their guy if Hagens is no longer there. Jake O'Brien going at 6 to the Flyers. Now we'll go ahead and bring back Mr. Michalak for pick number 7, as he's going to be selecting for his Bruins here. Who do you like here at 7, Michael Ack?
So I think with Boston, I think it's kind of funny. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centers, 6 centers have gone so far in this draft. And I know Boston is very weak down the middle. If you look in their prospect pool, there's not a whole lot there. We've got some hope for some guys, but even still, looking at this draft, I think Boston, if this is how it plays out, they're just going to take the best player available. And with that pick, it's going to be Porter Martone. I know he's a winger. He's not the guy down the middle that they're looking for. But in a draft like this, Boston's a team that could move up. Boston's a team that could just trade this pick away outright for a player. And I wouldn't be surprised to see either one. But if it plays out this way, Don Sweeney, he's taken his hits in the draft throughout his career. I know 2015 is kind of hanging over his head still. At least as a Boston fan, we still hold it over his head.
Right.
But in a position like this, you've got to go with the best player left on the board. And for me, that's Porter Martone.
Yeah, I think he's still part of that tier of the players we're talking about who aren't at the top, but then, that secondary tier, as you could call it. And especially at Porter Martone, similar to the James Haggins category. I remember this draft class before I had even ever heard of Matthew Schaefer. I remember this draft class being Haggins versus Martone. And then here they are potentially going 5 and 7. So if the Bruins have Martone available to them at 7, not even because of anything that he's done wrong, but because of teams going after their positional needs, let's say, then Martone is a slam dunk. Elite Prospects has him ranked at 3 and in the 1 to 5 range. Shades of Blake Wheeler and Mikko Rantanen, a special talent whose passing, vision, and tactical genius could put him among the NHL's elite playmakers. And at 6'2" 3/4, that also helps at 208 pounds. A unique combination of hard and soft skills with top line upside. 8.0 on the senses and the passing. Only 5.5 on the physical for his size. He doesn't quite play the most physical game. I know that from what I've seen, despite his size. So I think that could be something that he could utilize a lot more. You might think of him as a power forward, but you could probably describe him more as a playmaker. And his hockey sense very strong as well. The Bruins would be happy with him there.
And one thing I like about Martone is, even playing in the CHL, like he's somebody that drives on a line. And if, suffering through the Bruins season this year, the biggest thing for them was the fact that Pasta can step up and drive a line. So stepping into the Bruins, again, he's not going to play next season for Boston, but he's a player that can sit behind Pasta, learn how to drive a line, and they can build the line around a winger like they already have and kind of fill, Zacha on the first line with Pasta's not the strongest center, but he plays very well with Pasta. It's a senses kind of game. And so if you've got a guy like Martone that you can eventually slot up, he can drive a line, and you can have a couple of guys that aren't as good as him on that line, but still have a very effective offense with it.
Yeah, well said. Dice putting in the chat here, he's such a Bruins type player. It's not just because of his size either, but when I think about it in Porter Martone, sometimes players just click, and Martone and the Bruins, that just clicks in my mind. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's a great player. He'd be a great player in Boston. Again, we'd love to have a guy down the middle, but if things shake out, Porter Martone falling to us at 7 is a steal, in my opinion.
Agreed. Very good. Thank you very much. Now we'll see you back for Columbus's pick at 14. But until then, we'll go ahead and get back to Hobbsy, who's now selecting for the Seattle Kraken at 8. Hobbsy, where do you think Seattle goes here if the draft shakes out like this?
If the draft shakes out this way, I think Seattle's calling Pittsburgh, Detroit. They're looking at a trade down.
Mm-hmm.
You want Brady Martin or Roger McQueen? Come get them.
Mm-hmm.
But since we're not doing trades, Seattle needs a defenseman, and they're going to take Radim Mrtka. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to spell it right here.
The Czech guy.
Right.
Big 6'6" defenseman, two-way, very strong, offensively, defensively. He's the whole package, and we all know the NHL loves big, tall defensemen.
Oh, yeah. Look at Simashev, right?
Simashev, exactly. And let's be honest, Seattle desperately needs a defenseman in their system.
And he was playing for the Seattle Thunderbirds, right?
He was playing for the Seattle Thunderbirds after he came over from Czechia.
There you go. That's a nice story.
The Kraken have Beniers, Shane Wright, Berkeley Catton, Edward Chalet, Carson Rakoff. They have forwards everywhere. They don't have a defenseman.
Yeah, like who's in their system? Like I remember maybe could it be 2 years ago? Was it only Riker Evans? Like since then, I think
they have Riker Evans. Yeah, right now it's basically Ty Nelson, Caden Price.
Yeah, Ty Nelson as well. Yeah,
Lucas Dragicevic. There's not that much there.
Yeah, I think if sorry, finish your thought. My bad.
They need a defenseman, and this might be a little high, which is why I think they would look at a trading down. But they've got to take a defenseman, I think.
Yeah, positionally that makes sense. It would probably be Murtaka or Jackson Smith there if I'm Seattle and I'm looking at defense. But even Hensler, Aitchison, a lot of guys are having a lot of stock being added to their value, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So Murtaka, 6'5" 3/4. Been a lot of hype around him in the last couple of weeks, especially through Pittsburgh. I've been hearing a towering minute-eating defenseman on track to become an NHLer. He has top 4 skill, sense, and pace some nights, but he'll have to find them every night to maintain effectiveness. Shades of Marcus Pettersson, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Marcus Pettersson might not be the flashiest player out there, but look at what he did in Pittsburgh, and yeah, that was the definition of minute-eating with the Penguins. And there's a lot to say on Murtaka, but he has a great size. He's no slouch with possession. He makes tricky passes off the wall on retrievals, joins the rush, manages space well, top of the zone, though his points mostly come from straightforward plays and zone extending pinches. He flashes some high-end ability. You think, in your franchise mode brain, 6'5", that means they have 1-star skating. But no, he's actually able to move quite well.
Yeah, he seems to be he should be a solid top 4 defenseman at worst.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he doesn't pan out the way whoever drafts him would like, he's still 6'6". He's gonna play NHL games.
Can't teach size. That's it.
Can't teach size.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Hobbs. Just had some Murtaka going to the Kraken at 8. We'll see you back for Detroit at 13. Let's go ahead and move now to Jiggles, who made his pick through myself earlier at pick number 2 for his San Jose Sharks, but now he'll be selecting at pick number 9 for the Buffalo Sabres. Jiggles, welcome, and thanks for making it. I know it was a bit of a tight schedule today.
Yep, appreciate it. So, with the 9th overall selection, the Buffalo Sabres are proud to select out of the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Roger McQueen.
Roger McQueen.
So, the reason why I'm going with McQueen for Buffalo, if you look at their trend of drafts the last few years, there tend to be a lot of mid players. Well, not mid players, but like a lot of middle six, maybe the top 6 tweeners. Like especially looking at last draft when they moved down from 11 to 14. And as a Sharks fan, I'm very familiar with that trade where the Sharks ended up getting Dickinson, and the Sabres ended up getting Consta Helenius. So, which I guess it's moving along at about projection, but this is the ultimate upside swing, and especially if Buffalo's going to get out of their rut, this is the time to try to hit on the biggest upside versus getting maybe another smallish winger like an Eklund or maybe like O'Brien on the board. So Roger McQueen to Buffalo.
We love our upside here in the channel. And so Roger McQueen ranked 5th by elite prospects in the 4 to 9 range, according to them. Shades of Evgeny Malkin, especially with the size, I would think, at 6'5" 1/4. A power center with highlight reel handling skill, a sniper's release, playmaking ability, and defensive impact. But repeated injuries make him the draft's biggest risk. Same for Roger McQueen. If he was fully healthy, or there's no injury concern, whatever you want to call it, just not the idea of the injury proneness, I think he'd be top 3. Is that crazy to say?
Nope, not at all. And this is the big upside swing, because at this point in the Sabres arc, it's like if he busts and it doesn't work out, well, you might as well just take the shot. How many early teens first round picks have the Sabres had?
Yeah, true. In the early stages, McQueen dominated, showcasing improved and NHL caliber skating mechanics, quickness, and edges, but a lower back injury derailed his season in mid-October. It wasn't until March that he returned, where he, after an initial few sluggish games, returned to top form before going down to injury again, ending his season at just 20 games played. So as you can see on the screen here, 20 points in those 17 games. Last year, 51 and 53. So what he did in those 17 games was great, kind of like that Matthew Schaefer type of thing where we have to go off of what we did see, but there's not as much of an injury proneness, I suppose, with Schaefer as there seems to be with McQueen. But he's also been watched a lot longer. There's been a lot more hype around McQueen over the last few years, as opposed to someone who's come up as more of a surprise, like someone like O'Brien, let's say, who wasn't ranking as highly a year ago today. But all that to say, Roger McQueen, huge upside pick. That's exactly the type of thing that I think the Buffalo Sabres need to do. And that could be a huge slam dunk success for them if it could just, for once go in their, things could just go in their favor. Let's see in the prospects here. Yeah, Real Deal Prime. Sorry, in the comments here. Buffalo taking another center with injury history. Sorry. Really interesting prospect as well, says Cagney. I remember him scoring between the legs breakaway goals an underager at the U18s a few years ago. Huh. All right, so there's the pick for Buffalo. Thank you, Jiggles, for getting the Sabres pick on the board. We'll now go back to Golden, who's now selecting for the Anaheim Ducks, who have the pick at 10.
All right. Anaheim Ducks. Thank you very much, Anaheim. This is a very interesting pick here, top 10. Been up higher end beforehand. They've taken guys like Leo Carlson. They've taken Beckett Seneca. Oh, with the fact that they've taken a bunch of forwards, I initially thought my idea was Radim Murka for Seattle because for a defenseman. So if you look at it, like with Anaheim, they've got a bunch of lefties that they have in their system. Jackson Lacombe, Pavel Minchkov, Olin Zellweger. They've got a bunch of guys who are playing lefty already. Somebody like a Murka could have helped them. But since Hobbsy has gotten them for the Kraken at number 8, I had to pivot a little bit. So I've instead gone for Victor Eklund.
Okay. He's with a K, I think.
Yeah.
Victor. No, it was with a C.
Oh, no, it's with C. Yeah.
The last name is with a K. Eklund. Victor Eklund. Tell me a little bit about Victor Eklund. And he's going to be joining his brother in California, at least. That's nice.
Absolutely. Younger, he's a little bit of a smaller guy, 5'11", 31 points in 42 games, playing with Anton Frundell. You got a little bit of experience with a guy who's going up a little higher in the draft. And with Anaheim, when it comes to a bunch of their forwards, you've got a few left wingers in there. I mean, obviously, Cutter Gauthier stands out as a big left winger for them, but it never hurts to have another guy who can play left wing to fit right in there, because you've got Chris Kreider now for them at this time, but a little bit of a later on time, you can get a guy like Victor Eklund who can slot up there. And of course, Beckett Seneca on the right will definitely help out the team. I think Eklund kind of slots right in there and plays well with Anaheim. He could set up guys like Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, some of those guys on the team. I think he can kind of help them out and build that forward core just a little bit more.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting here. Shades of, and I think this is the most accurate shades of that I've seen so far. Shades of Seth Jarvis and Travis Konechny. And I think that, especially Konechny probably, I don't know, maybe Jarvis, but they're both so similar. Anyways, I think that's very, very accurate for Victor Eklund, who is a highly translatable and skilled winger with one of the best motors in the draft and a physical game that supersedes his size at 5'11". A strong bet to become a top 6 NHL contributor. So that's when we're talking about value. At 10, see, Buffalo just took a big swing on Roger McQueen, who ends up being a top 3 player in this draft, or injuries derail his career. Whereas you could also take Victor Eklund, who is more of a guarantee to be a top 6 guy, but will he have that superstar potential to him? So that's where teams need to think about, what can we afford to do? Like the Ducks, let's say in theory that McQueen hadn't gone yet, the Ducks could afford to take a swing because they have so many great prospects in their system. But not to make this all about McQueen, just to say Buffalo, it's what if they did what they just did right there, taking McQueen, they'd be crossing their fingers and toes to really make sure this is the right selection. All I'd say, Victor Eklund, great skating, great passing, great senses. He's even has a physical part to his game despite being 5'11". And when you imagine a smaller forward who plays a hyper-translatable game and has all the required skills and characteristics to overcome his size disadvantage, you're imagining Victor Eklund. That's what the Elite Prospects guide has to say on him.
Absolutely. He's definitely got a bit of a five-tool player type of vibe to him. And I think I really use that.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Golden. We'll see you again for St. Louis at 19. Is that it? You have a little bit of a break now. Very good.
All right.
Okay. So we'll move back to Dice, who's now selecting for his Pittsburgh Penguins. First, before you even make the pick, Dice, what do you think about the Penguins at 11? Are they moving up? Are they moving down? Are they staying at 11? What do you think is going to happen with that pick?
Well, if the board is falling this way, I would have hoped that they moved up, because this is my personal nightmare scenario.
Oh, man.
But that's okay. If things happen this way, it seems like there's a script that has been written, and Kyle Dubas is going to go get another Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound to add to his collection, and they're going to take Brady Martin. Brady Martin is the hardest hitter in the draft, bar none. Scouts have even said that he's probably one of the hardest hitters in the NHL if he plays a game next year.
Huh. So I hadn't read that. That's great. That's why I see shades of Sam Bennett, so it makes sense.
Yeah, this is definitely big boy playoff style hockey. That's the player that you want here. He's only 6 feet, and the Penguins have said they want to add size in this draft, but he plays a lot bigger than 6 feet. The issue with him is skating, but he has a good head on his shoulders, good hockey sense. He can make plays. He can be a nightmare for folks to play against. So I think this would be the fit. It's too good to pass up.
Yeah, agreed. Excuse me. Not just the size and the hitting, but like you said, that playmaking ability really stands out. He's a one-of-a-kind manipulative playmaker, nice little adjective there, who overwhelms opponents with monster forechecking ability and bone-crushing hits. Top 6 NHL outcome hinges on skating development, which they have ranked at 4.5 out of 9, so about halfway up the scale. But physical at 8.0, shooting and passing at 6.5. In all our years as Elite Prospects of producing draft guides, we've never scouted a player like Brady Martin. So that's very interesting for teams that are maybe going to see him all the way at 4, who knows? Or the Penguins would love to say, okay, let's do it at 11. He's truly one of a kind, combining an unorthodox style of movement and puck handling with high-level offense thinking and an endless barrage of hits. When he gets ahead of steam, he looks unstoppable, weaving through the neutral zone, alternating between holding the puck deep in his hip pocket and perfectly timed pushes through sticks and feet. A seemingly bottomless bag of tricks, and he regularly makes the flashy look easy. So Brady Martin to the Penguins. Would you be content with? Well, let me rephrase this. If the draft falls this way, I think you're content with Brady Martin. But if Brady Martin goes earlier, and you see things panning out a little bit differently, do the Penguins need to make a pounce to trade up to select someone else who's dropping, you think? Or would it be okay with any one of these 11 players going to Pittsburgh?
I think so. I've heard Mertke to them a little bit, and that's the only one that would give me pause out of this list so far. The other wrinkle we have to consider, not just about the Penguins moving up, but how they do it.
Yeah.
And Data, I'm going to use this to segue over to you with pick number 12.
Right.
Is pick number 12 is still in limbo. It is possible that the New York Rangers decide to go ahead and send Pittsburgh the pick they owe them this year, number 12, instead of waiting until next year. And if you do that and you look at Puckpedia's pick calculator, if you trade Utah 11 and 12, you could get pick 4 and pick 43. So that would be a fair trade. Utah's talked about wanting to move. That would be interesting as a basis for a trade. So that's how they would trade up. I'm going to put in the chat over on Discord Data who I would pick for Pittsburgh at 12 if they get both.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
All right. Thank you, Dice. So now, as I represent the New York Rangers, I can't say that I'm an expert on every team in the NHL and every team's prospect pool and every situation of going on with the trades, especially with the Rangers. I have so many moving pieces right now and all their players. But I got to say, I think if the draft class were to pan out this way, I'm going Jackson Smith here. I'm not totally convinced by the Rangers blue line, and they're thinking about trading out K'Andre Miller, and they have so much money dedicated to Will Borgen, and I don't know. I know they have Schneider, of course they have Fox, but I think the Rangers would do well to add Jackson Smith to their defensive core if he were to be there at 12. A dynamic offense creator. He's 6'3" and 6'3 1/4", 195, left-handed shot in the 4-9 range according to Elite Prospects. But I'll have to say, shades of Thomas Harley and Travis Sanheim. Explosive four-way mover, physical shutdown presence, and more, all in the same skill set. All roads lead to the NHL, but which pathway will he take? So 7.0 on the skating, 6.5 on the passing, handling, sense, and physical. I think Jackson Smith, if he's there, makes a lot of sense for the Rangers. Not to say they have abundance of forwards, but they do have Gabriel Perreault. They do have good young forwards in Alexis Lafreniere, and if they could just make sure everyone's happy and signed, that would go a very long way. A bit more on Jackson Smith. We see most NHL defensemen, even top 4 ones, thrive in only a few areas of the game. There are puck retrievers and breakout artists, rush stoppers and physical presences, and offensive dynamos and dynamic skaters. Those who are all of those things are among the league's rarest players. Enter Jackson Smith, a toolsy defenseman who, with proper development, could become one of those immensely valuable players. Quick, explosive, shifty. A lot to say about Jackson Smith and why I think the Rangers would be happy to take him here. And that would be my pick if I'm there at 12. So having said that, I'll pass it over to Hobbsy now, who selects at 13 for the Red Wings.
I'm back.
Welcome back. What are you thinking?
I will say I had Victor Eklund in Sharpie for Detroit. He feels very Detroit-ish, but he's now gone.
Yeah, true.
So Detroit's going to pivot, and they're going to take Carter Bear.
Okay.
They need skill in the pipeline, and this guy has crazy skill. He's competitive. He will win puck battles. He is not afraid to go into the dirty areas. Yes, he tore his Achilles, I think, was the injury, and that has some people scared, but I think I saw he's already back on the ice, so that's not really much of a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Before he went down with Everett in the WHL, he had 82 points, 56 games, including scoring 40 goals. He's going to do everything. He's going to win the puck battles. He's going to compete every shift. He should fill Detroit's top 6 in nicely with DeBrincat and Raymond and Marco Kasper and Dylan Larkin.
True. Yeah, you give a good description here, as Carter Bear is described as the perhaps most intense competitor in the draft. Fearless, physical, always making something happen, and he's one of the top playmakers available too. So that's nice to see as well. Maybe not as physical, let's say, as Brady Martin, but still the dual threat. I'm trying to search for a lot of words tonight. I need a thesaurus. The dual threat of the physicality and the playmaking skill, which is so enticing. So the Red Wings would take Carter Bear there, a 6th-round pick in the WHL. Carter Bear clawed his way up the ranks. He became a top 6 forward as a draft -1 player with his gritty net front skills. Then he morphed into a dynamic dual threat scorer this past season, becoming a potential lottery pick. Interesting. Yeah, great point production, like you said. The intensity, the physicality. That might be something that Stevie Y is looking at. This guy saying
very Stevie Y-ish.
Mm-hmm. Carter Bear is gross in the U18 AAA in the league I played. He is scary to play. He is so nasty and not afraid, says Sky. So there you go, firsthand experience. So there's Carter Bear to the Red Wings at 13. Thank you, Hobbsy. Now we'll move over to Michael at 14 with the Blue Jackets. What are you thinking there, Michael?
So the Blue Jackets are hard to read for me. They've got a couple of first-round picks, but they're not a team that anybody's talking about as far as movement goes with the draft. But if I'm sitting here at 14 with Columbus, I know they went through the shenaniganry of David Jiricek last year and everything that came with that. But I think that they're going to pick another defenseman here at 14, and I think they're going to go Keyshawn Aitchison.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big physical defenseman, loves to hit. His profile is a little bit different than what Columbus has drafted in defensemen in the last couple of years. They've looked for a lot more two-way guys with size. Whereas with Aitchison, I think at the NHL level is going to slot in as a true defensive defenseman, somebody that you can rely on the penalty kill, somebody that's going to block shots for you. He's a big guy in the back end. And I just think that he'd be a real good fit in Columbus. They don't have a lot of guys like that in their system, let alone in the NHL. And I think he'd pair real well for him.
Yeah, I like that very much. Shades of Jacob Trouba with a one-timer, says Elite Prospects. A punishing two-way defender with clutch scoring ability, play-killing potential, and elite physical skills. A future fan favorite in the NHL. And you know what I'm finding interesting as we just talked through all these players? There's a lot of guys who are playing physical games without being 6'5". And I don't know if we can say that's across the board, but 20 years ago, it used to be that there's two types of players. You're like 5'11" and under, and you're 6 foot and up. But some of these guys are 6 foot, 6'1", even 5'11". And they're playing such physical games. I feel like the game is not only getting faster, but getting harder in that way, where players are playing with more of that physical edge to them, but they're not just physical players. They come with XYZ attached to them. And Aitchison is that version, but on defense as a defenseman.
Yeah, and he's a fun guy to watch, and I know he's had some flashes of offense this past season, but he's not a guy that I see offensively in the league. He's a bruising, hard-hitting guy. He's gonna block those shots for you. He's gonna eat up those penalty kill minutes. Like, he's a guy that I could see in a few years playing 20, 22 minutes a night and being that stalwart defensive piece for a team moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. Very good. Yeah, the Blue Jackets would enjoy and appreciate that in their system. So that's Aitchison going to the Blue Jackets at 14. Thank you, Mike Lack. We'll see you back soon for Columbus again, actually, later on. And now we'll move to Jiggles, who's representing Pat and the Vancouver Canucks at pick number 15. Jiggles, what are you thinking after Aitchison goes to Columbus?
With the 14th overall selection in the 2025 Data 782 NHL mock draft, the Vancouver Canucks are proud to select the Seattle Thunderbirds of the Western Hockey League, Braden Coots. So, looking at Vancouver's system, they've got some wings, they've got some D, they're light on centers. So, at this point, the talent difference between a couple of the other players that are still on the board and trying to plug a center hole in the system is not that much. And honestly, this is getting a centerman into the system that could probably get into the top 5 of the Canucks system. And while I have one player technically on the board on pure talent, I'm gonna go with positional need for Vancouver system and take Braden Coots.
Very good. I was really struggling to type out that name. Braden Coots, you could write it in like probably 8 different ways, but Braden Coots, a one-man forechecking machine. It's a theme in this draft that we're seeing. Already looks like an NHLer with flashes of dynamic play driving, and there's top 6 potential there too. He started the draft cycle as number 10 prospect for Elite Prospects, ended up moving down a few spots in subsequent rankings. Thunderbirds captain, showed high projectable style with the offensive flair to be a top talent from this draft class. A one-man forecheck. His motor and energy are undeniably elite. And there's a lot of promise in his rush game, even if there are still elements that require refinement. So as a centerman, and again, a guy who plays a physical game despite being 5'11", and that would be an addition for the Canucks system, which I feel, I don't know if I'm being unfair, they kind of need stuff everywhere. So that would just be one more piece one more guy in their cupboard that they're stocking up on. And I think, is that best player available? Perhaps even. I don't know if that was what your strategy was there, Jiggles, or if it was more position.
It was technically, I had one player on the list I gave you. I had one player still available that was higher, but I just, based on needs, don't think the difference is big enough to avoid addressing the center need in the first round. So going to get the center and live with it and call it a day. Call it a day until the next round.
Very good. I like it. All right. Thank you, Jiggles. I got back-to-back picks coming up here, so I'll see if I can steal a couple away from some people. So I picked twice here, the Canadiens from the Flames at 16 and the Canadiens themselves at 17. So for the first one, I'll tell you the easy one first. Let me just pull up his information so I'm ready to talk right away. I'll tell you the easy one first. This one, if he's here at 16, you would think that similar to like Louis Leblanc, he just has to go, and that is Justin Carbonneau. It just, you got to do it. Carbonneau. Not just that he's French or French Canadian, but that he's probably, I don't know, he might be the best forward available at this point. There's definitely a couple others who are in my head. I don't want to put out any spoilers out there for anybody else who's still making their picks. But I think Carbonneau would probably be a guy the Canadians have to take with one of their 2 picks if he's available here. It just makes a lot of sense positionally, plus also one of the best players available wise if he's there. A highlight reel creator. He's a 6'1" right winger, by the way. A highlight reel creator with top of class tools and the mindset to be a difference maker. Decision making needs work, but the top 6 upside is clear. Right winger, shades of Philip Forsberg. 7.0 on the shooting and handling, 6.5 on the skating, 6.0 on the passing and senses, 5.5 on the physical. If we ranked purely by upside, says Elite Prospects, Justin Carbonneau would be in the top 5 of this year's class, up there with McQueen and everybody else. So the upside is definitely prevalent. The 6'1" winger can fly with crossovers while keeping tight control over the puck, slipping it around skates, under sticks, and behind defenders. His game often featured multiple 2 and 3 zone carries where he dangled defenders, sprinted wide of them, and cut right into their space, displaying some developed physical skills to go along with his high-end skating and handling combo. Although he's not a power forward in the purest sense, he can hit, retrieve pucks, protect them, and drive them right to the cage. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm putting in some of my biases, and I don't agree with those biases. I would have the head coach of the Canadiens speak Mandarin for all I care, but they have to speak French and they have to be, le gars de chez nous and all that. So I don't think the Canadiens should feel pressured to take Justin Carbonneau, but if he's there at 16 or 17 and he had 2 picks back to back, I like the upside, and I think you just got to don't think that, it's because he's French. Sorry if I framed it that way. I think because he's French, everyone's going to be expecting it and looking forward to it. But that's not why I would say to go ahead with that selection. So Justin Carbonneau would say, let's say in theory at 16. And then at 17, let me go get my next guy ready here. I have a couple guys in mind. I got to make a decision right now. I got 2 guys in my head. And I'm probably going to have to go, with, let's type it in, Logan Hensler. There's another forward that I'm really high on, but I don't think the Canadiens would go back-to-back forwards here. I think it would be a wise decision to go best forward and best defenseman available, or one of the best, forwards and one of the best defensemen available instead of 2 at the same position. I think Logan Hensler would be a great pickup here. Shades of Noah Hanifin, a right-handed D. The Canadiens are always looking for right-handed D in their system. A toolsy play killer who steadily improved through the season, an easy projection to the NHL, and there's more offense to give. If we went back to the 2024 U18s, you likely predicted Hensler would be one of the top defensemen taken in this draft year. Hensler, an anchor for the silver medal winning United States squad, averaged 1642 of ice time as a 17-year-old and was an impressive player through this draft -1 season. Transitioning to NCAA as a true freshman, it threw him into the rigors of NCAA hockey, but he was averaging 18-15 of ice time per night through the first 10 games, and a considerable amount to handle for any prospect jumping into college hockey. Was it pretty initially? No, but he adjusted, and scouts are saying that they are blown away by how much that he has improved over this season. Deft rush patterns, proactive footwork, feints, and details that draw defenders in close, only to leverage mobility advantages dot his game. So I'm just looking at the comments here. Good. Oh, so Cagney Cagney put a comment earlier on that I missed. I'm not super high on Hensler. Yes, I'm Logan Hensler, says Cagney. Will be interesting to see who decides to take him. I think the Canadiens could be a team that affords to do it with 2 picks. I could see a lot of guys here, and when their names come up, I'll say their names. I don't want to give anything away just yet, but I could see the Canadiens going for a couple upside guys in Carbonneau and Hensler here. And I'll stop with that. Now we move to Dice with this selection from the Flames at number 18. Let's do this right here. All right. Dice, what are you thinking for the Flames at 18?
Calgary is in such a strange place right now. It's kind of the opposite of my earlier pick with Utah, right? Where they were in the playoff hunt, but it seemed like found money. They're kind of in the beginning of this rebuild that they're going to have to do around Dustin Wolf. It's an odd place, but if you don't know what to do, you take the best player available. And this is the guy that I was alluding to earlier that I think the Penguins would take at 12 if they had 12, and that is Lyndon Lakovic.
I already started typing his name.
Yeah.
I already started typing his name. That's exactly who I would take if the Canadiens are looking for size or if anything else. At 16 or 17, if one of those picks is going to be a forward and you're for whatever reason not taking maybe Justin Capano, then I think Lyndon Lakovic would be exactly who the Canadiens take. I'm not sure he goes much higher. You're saying the Pittsburgh Penguins at 11? I don't think he's going to be in the top 10.
At 12 if they had both.
Sure. I definitely don't think I see Lakovic in the top 10, but I could see teams starting at 11, 12, 13, blah, 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 thinking about Lyndon Lakovic. So if he goes to the Flames, I think he fits, just like Porter Martone fits with the Bruins. I feel like Lakovic fits pretty well with the Flames. And I'll leave you to explain a little bit of the rest.
Sure. So it's like what you were saying before, where there's a lot of smaller guys that play big, and this is one of those bigger guys that plays like a smaller, skilled player. I think Lakovic, the knock on him is he's not physical at 6'4", but my understanding is he's grown 5 inches in 2 years, so he's still figuring out what it means to be 6'4". I also have heard in interviews that he is a big time hockey nerd, just a real student of the game. And so I think that means that his development ceiling is very good. He's going to get there because he is going to be dedicated and smart and work towards it. So I think the physicality can come. He already has great hands. He's the captain of Moose Jaw. He's their best player, and that's on a team with Braden Yeager. So he's pretty good. And I think this would be a BPA.
Yeah, I like that pick very much. Lakovic, I'd be happy if the Canadiens took him. I'm sure you'd be happy if the Penguins took him. I think there'd be a lot of teams that are happy if their team selected him somewhere in those teen ranges. A fluid mover with dual threat scoring and masterful control of the game. Few prospects evolve as much as he has. Physicality is the next step. At 6'4" and a quarter, 190 pounds. Shades of Quinton Byfield and Dylan Cousins. And yeah, it's a great shot as well. Martone, it's like he has his size, but he's a passer. Lakovic has his size, but he's a shooter. So we'll see how both he and Martone kind of find that size part of their game and incorporate it into what they already do so well. So I think we'll leave off Lakovic there. Great pick for the Flames at 18 if he's still around. We'll now move to 19, back to Golden Gamer with the 19th overall pick going to the St. Louis Blues.
All right, the St. Louis Blues. Lunchbox, if you are around, I'm hopeful this one will be pleasing to you. So I'm going to have, for the St. Louis Blues, take a guy who I myself am pretty high on, and that is Cameron Reed of the Kitchener Frontenacs, I believe, is the team name.
Did I spell his name right? I think it's Cameron. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, Kitchener Rangers.
Yeah. A guy that I feel like St. Louis could really use as a helpful defenseman. If you look at forwards, they've got a bunch of young forwards that could help them. Dylan Holloway, Jimmy Snuggerud, Texier, Dvorsky, Zachary Bolduc, bunch of those guys. If you look on defense, especially on the left side, yeah, you've got Philip Broberg, but not a whole lot afterwards, unless Adam Juracek decides to play left side D. Not a lot of left defensemen that St. Louis could use. So I think a guy like Cameron Reed slotting in there, working his way in, could help them out. 54 points in 67 games. He has a pretty good upside, 6 foot. I think I like him as a good defensive option for the Blues.
Yeah, I like that. And you know what? He's a really good skater. I don't know if you had mentioned that while I was typing and if I didn't hear you, but such a good skater. Play driving defender with all-around skills and flashes of high-end offense, but he will have to tap into his offense consistently to fill a top-end role. Shades of Devon Tays and Cam York. He's very close to 6 feet, 193 pounds. He doesn't exactly fit the archetype of any particular smaller NHL defenseman. He's not a Lane Hudson. He's not an Adam Fox, but he has elements of all those players, which is very interesting. His skating ability fuels his breakout game. He can retrieve pucks, shake forechecking pressure, using his edges in the net, and carry the puck out. He acts as a forward for most of the game, said one scout when he went in February. So he forechecks for pucks. He's making passes off the back wall. What's going on? But, then at the same time, he also has it's more the play driving as opposed to the finishing, obviously as a defenseman, and that's what you're going to need as your power play quarterback or whatever else. He's not. I don't know if, again, I haven't seen Cameroon very much, but from what I understand is that he's not necessarily pinching so much as he's retrieving. And I find there's like a subtle difference there. And Cameroon does a lot well. Great foot speed. Just has to, like we're saying for a lot of these guys, just work on the physicality, work on those parts that will come as you get experience. And I like that pick for the St. Louis Blues, who would get a defenseman in their system. Who, like you said, a lot of forwards already. A defense, I think, is the right pick for them here.
And for somebody who could play very well in the power play, a quarterback on the power play, like you said, I think that could really help them.
Yep, agreed. Very good. All right, so the Blues take a big defenseman off the board. There aren't as many in this top 20. I think there's going to start being some more that go. But how many defensemen have gone? Like 5 in the top 20, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see moving to 20. So I thank you, Golden Gamer. We'll see you again soon for Nashville. And we'll move back to Mike Lack, who now has pick number 20 as we move to this pick, which came from the Minnesota Wild.
So my logic with Columbus, so they go defenseman at 14 overall. They're in a fun position where they've got a bunch of forward prospects that are going to look to make that leap next season. If you're looking at Gavin Brindley, if you're looking at Lindstrom, like they've got some good forward prospects. And so I think they have the ability to kind of reach here. And so I've got them going goalie, Joshua Ravensbergen.
Oh, wow.
And so I look at him because it's between him and Frolov if you're looking at goalies in the draft. I think him being used to the North American game, I think is going to bode a little bit better for him in the short term. But with Columbus being in a position where, you picked a defenseman at 14, you've got a group of forward prospects looking to make that leap next year, you can afford to take a shot on this one and bring in goalie. If you look at them last season, their biggest knock was the inconsistency in net. And so I know you're looking at a guy that's 5 years out as a goalie, 4 years, 5 years out. But it's never a bad time to address a need when it's a need staring you right in the face.
Wow, that is poetry, my friend. Very good. Great. I love the logic behind it. And same, if I'm thinking about Columbus, Merzlikins, Tarasov, are they going to be there in 5 years? I don't know. And of course, free agency and trades can come up. But Ravensbergen going into the system at his age, being already over 6'5", he shades of Ben Bishop, big, composed, confident. He uses all of his tools effectively. Elite puck tracker that is able to come up with big saves. So Joshua Ravensbergen going to Columbus sounds like a good fit here. They have him in the range of 23 to 34. You're reaching just a little at 20, but I don't think it's too crazy to think that the Blue Jackets could have that in their consideration. I think this would be the point at which teams start to think about that, probably around 20. The crown jewel of the goalie class for this draft. And this again, 6'5", crazy.
Yeah, he's a big boy. And if you're getting comp to Ben Bishop, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. He was a very serviceable goalie in the NHL. I know my buddies down here are big Lightning fans, and they'll always show love for Ben Bishop. But Columbus, they're in such a weird spot. They're on the edge of making the playoffs. They've got a good cast, and they took a huge hit last year with everything that happened with Gaudreau. And so I don't want to look at this season as an emotional season, like doing as well as they did emotionally, because they still have a good team and they're building. So you've had guys take leaps this year, and then, like I said, you've got guys looking to jump into the NHL next year. They have the ability to take a shot, and I see them as a team to do it.
I like it a lot. Very good. So there's Columbus's pick. And you'll be back for Chicago's pick at 25. Thank you for doing so well for the Columbus organization. I'm sure the fans will be thanking you for that one. That's going to be good for stocking their cupboards positionally. Now we'll go back to Hobbsy, who now gets to pick for his own team, the Ottawa Senators at 21. What do you think here, Hobbsy?
This fell exactly the way I wanted it to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so with Ottawa's pick at 21, he's my number one target for them. It's Malcolm Spence from the Erie Otters.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I'm going to steal the first 4 words of the elevator pitch. A highly disruptive winger. Brady Tkachuk, Ridley Gregg.
Disruptive.
He fits right in. It's
He
Cam
also has
Robinson.
the got that dog in him trait.
Got that dog in him trait. Yeah, that sounds right. Cam Robinson scouting report. He was a constant thorn in the side of opponents, hounding puck carriers on the back check and delivering a heavy, disruptive forecheck that made exits difficult. Persistent physical edge that complements a speed-driven game. Competitive motor, flashes of offense, high energy middle six NHLer. That sounds exactly what Ottawa needs.
Yeah, and I like that. So I'm trying to read and also speak at the same time. I like this sentence here that says, when Spence is at his best with his motor at full throttle, here it is, he can take over games. Sometimes it's a phrase that's used too loosely, but if you're speaking seriously, which I'm sure they were in Erie, but we'll find out if that transfers into the NHL, that skill, it's kind of like size. It's hard to teach, the ability to take over a game, connecting with teammates in the offensive zone, roaming the high slot, getting open at the right moment to unleash his one-timer, and relaying his passes to the slot after eluding defenders on the wall. There's a lot to like about Malcolm Spence. Yes, shades of Jake Neighbors, range 18 to 25, Elite Prospect says. So if the Senators could get him at 21, joining in the... how do they call him what's that slogan on the Senators?
The pesky sins.
Yes, joining the pesky sins. I think he fits pretty well with that overall mentality. All these great picks. I feel like I'm a bum now with Capano and Hensler, but I think about when we talk about all the great things about all these other guys, because all of you as the special guests know so much, and I'm trying to piece together what I think I can put. But I like that for the Senators if he drops to 21. Oh, speaking of that, I have another pick to make here now on behalf of Derek. All right, give me a moment here. Thank you, Hobbsy. So now we'll go to pick 22, the Flyers via the Avalanche. Let me go to Derek's message that he sent me. So at 22, who would still be there? Okay, so that one is gone. That means his second pick is going to be... Let me make sure I can type it right. Is this one a bit off the board? Let's see. Elite Prospects has him ranked... Oh, yeah, this is a little bit off the board, huh? 42nd. Ooh, this is the first one that really goes off the board. Alexander Jarovsky. Let's get this typed out properly. Alexander Jarovsky going at 22nd to the Philadelphia Flyers, as they would have also taken, who did we say earlier on? Yes, Jake O'Brien. So Jake O'Brien and now Alexander Jarovsky going to the Flyers. A bit of an off-the-board pick, yes. I wonder if he played with Michkov. Yeah, let's. I honestly, I don't know very much about these guys who are playing like the MHL, but Jarovsky is in the 34 to 55 range, shades of Andrei Kuzmenko, a winger with elite hands and a unique development path, makes for a real boom or bust type of NHL draft pick. So handling already at 7.0, everything else, shooting 6.0, but then everything else 5.0, 4.5. There's no first-time draft-eligible player in Europe whose draft stock has skyrocketed as much during the season as Alexander Jarovsky's. The 6'1" winger came into the season with very little buzz and didn't have the hottest of starts either, with only registering 6 points in his first 16 MHL games of the season. After that, things clicked in an extraordinary way. In the following 29 regular season games, Jarovsky went on a 46-point run. That kind of production pace would put him in the same league with current NHLers like Pavel Dorofeyev and former first-round picks like Danila Yurov. Towards the end of the season, he appeared in 7 KHL playoff games, giving us a sense of how he performs in a professional environment. So with Jarovsky, the selling point is the pure, unadulterated skill that is impossible to teach. He is the single most skilled puck handler from Europe in this year's class, and it's not particularly close. That's a big statement. He's daring, often to a fault, but it helped him to create some of the best highlights we saw from any draft-eligible skater this season. There's also budding dual threat potential, capable of creating high-end looks for himself, but also maybe even more so, shows strong vision and finesse as a passer. Manipulative, deceptive, a lot to say about him. Wheeler has him at 41, prominent at 49 for the athletic analysis. Interesting. But Derek says Flyers go him at 22. Mighty Joe, I must bid you all adieu and get some sleep. It's been a mighty long day for this Maple. I'll finish this off tomorrow. Many thanks to Data for putting on a day of streams. Yes, this is our fourth and final stream of the day. Thank you, Mighty Joe. Get some good rest. Thanks for being here for so much of it. Much love, my friend. And with that being said, we'll now move to pick 23. We're moving along pretty well. We're getting close. We're almost done. We're moving on to pick number 23. We're back to Golden Gamer, who's selecting for the Predators once again. And the last pick that Golden made for the Predators was James Hagan. So they pick at 5, and then again now at 23. Golden, where does Nashville go at 23?
Oh boy, this has shaped up to be something I was not expecting to happen. One with what I feel to be a very like reach type thing with your pick for the Flyers, or Derek's pick for the Flyers. That is definitely something I was not expecting myself. What I wasn't expecting as well was for my pick, who I'm going to take for the Nashville Predators to fall this low, in my opinion. Best player available that I think, and that is Cole Reshny of the Victoria Royals.
Reshny. Is that with an EY at the end, or is it just
NY, I think.
Hold on. I promise I know these people. I just don't know. Cole Reshny. Oh, yes, NY.
Yeah. Cole Reshny, a 5'10" player who, on Victoria, 92 points in 62 games. Somebody who's up there in the point totals. Somebody who skates very well. And even if you look at Nashville, they don't have many left wing prospects. You've got Reed Schaefer as a potential left wing prospect, but otherwise, that is really it. So somebody like Reshny could really help when you've got a first line full left winger of Philip Forsberg, but then a second line left winger right now of Michael Bunting. You could really have somebody like him take charge and get into that top 6 for left wing side very easily.
Yeah, that's true. Have you seen a picture of Reshny?
I have, yeah.
He looks like the default creative player in NHL mind. Yeah. Like not just his face, like the hairstyle too. Like he just looks like the guy that they have you, like the Joe NHL guy. So all that to say, shades of Matt Coronado, equal parts clever open ice playmaker and robust down low creator. He has the skill to fill the net and the details to make it without dynamic skating. 6.5 for passing and senses, then 5.5 for shooting, 5.0 on handling and physical, 4.5 on skating. A lot of these guys, it really comes down to the skating and the physical for so many of these guys. So many have shooting, passing, handling, and senses, but the physical and the skating, it's going to come with time. Though a mainstay top prospect for many, it took us longer to come around on Cole Reshny, says Elite Prospects. For most of the draft cycle, we saw the undersized, average skating center as a potential second-round pick. So he plays center, but honestly, with that skating and all that, I don't know. Like you said, he would be more probably on that left wing for the Predators. However, his details and playmaking combination grew on us, we eventually saw the light. So he finished 4th in primary assists per 60 in the WHL, one of the best playmakers available in this draft class, highly efficient passer in both open ice and down low, constant threat, spaces the ice well, a lot of good things for him and a lot of reasons why the Predators would be happy to take him at 23, which I think is some decent value.
Absolutely. Very good value, I would think.
All right. The Predators might give you a job here. Good work. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Now we'll go ahead. Sorry, finish what you were saying.
I was saying Smashville, you might as well. Let's go.
Hey, maybe that's going to be our next destination in franchise mode, so we'll see.
Who knows?
All right. Thank you, Golden. We'll see you actually, in just a few picks. All right. Get ready for 26.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now we'll move back to Jiggles, who is selecting a 24 for the LA Kings.
With the 24th overall selection in the Data 782 2025 NHL mock draft, which will eventually be held at the Nokia Theater in beautiful downtown Los Angeles, California, the Los Angeles Kings are proud to select of Edmonton in the Western Hockey League, Blake Fiddler.
Tell us a little bit about Blake.
He's a 6'4" defenseman, weighs 209, big boy on the blue line. The son of Vernon Fiddler, who I'm sure some of us have played in our franchise modes back in the day. I know I personally put his dad on some fourth lines on some Sharks franchise mode teams. I think it was his face-off stat. But enough about that. In LA's position, I'm looking to gear towards the blue line, and I had a choice between Boumediene and Fiddler, and just got to go with the one I prefer. Nice size, 6'4", NHL bloodlines, and could be a nice fit in the system.
Very good. Yes. So Blake Fiddler, 6'4", big guy for 209 pounds as well. Some of these guys, they have the size, not always the weights, but yeah, 6'4", 209. One of the toolsiest defensemen in the draft class, with plus level mobility and flashes of exciting puck skills, but shutting down the opposition will be his calling card. So not much on the shooting or the handling or anything like that, but physical 6.5 on a 9-point scale, 6.0 on the skating. A lot to be excited about with Blake Fiddler as a defenseman who still put up 33 points in 64 games, even though points isn't necessarily what he's most known for. It's that plus level mobility, great skating at his size, NHL bloodlines, right shot, tons of international experience. It's no surprise that Blake Fiddler is widely considered one of the top blue line prospects in this draft. But dig deeper, and you'll find that he's worthy of excitement for reasons that go well beyond the bio, as we just said. 3-zone skills, unusual mobility for a player his size. You got to look at his potential, and it's just staring you in the face when you see all that. Toolsiest, yes. All right. Anything else you want to add on Fiddler?
Nope. Other than the Kings think they're adding a nice, solid defenseman to their pipeline.
Very good. All right. Thank you kindly, Jiggles. We move on to 25, which sees Michael Ack selecting for the Chicago Blackhawks.
All right. So for Chicago, they've drafted a lot of centers recently. I know they've gone high with a couple of defensemen the last couple of years. But when I look at Chicago, they're drafting so many centers. So I'm looking at a big winger here out of Russia, Danil Prokhorov. He's 6'6". He's a big boy. He plays big. He played this last season in the NHL. 27 points, 20 of them are goals. He's a guy, he's raw. He's going to need some time. But if you've got, a guy like that with size who can score the puck, that's a nice compliment to Bedard. I think he'd be a real good fit here. I know he could go later, but I think he would go before Chicago picked again. So I could certainly see them going with a big right winger on this shot.
That's interesting. Yeah, this is not seeing too many reaches just yet. I think that's fair for a mock draft where we have no idea what the conversations and the interviews are saying. But for Prokhorov, who's ranked, let's say, 56th by elite prospects, I see the reason why he'd be so enticing. A missile on skates, 6'5", 209 pounds. He is a violent forward, not violent in spirit, but he's a violent forward who looks to throw crunching hits, fight to the net, and occasionally snipes off the rush. Sense is the concern. So on the 9-point scale, he has a 4.0 for sense, but 8.0 for physical, 6.0 for shooting, 20 goals and 27 points in 43 games in the MHL. When teams are searching for potential talent in the draft, distinct tools or skills that project the strengths at the NHL level are in hot demand. And in the case of Danil Prokhorov, the separating element is his physicality. The 6'5" Russian winger ended up tying for the highest physicality grade in this year's class. And there's a strong argument that he's the most physically imposing player available in the entire draft as well. Makes his presence known, throws his body around like a madman. And he's entirely net focused as an attacker. He attempted an absurd amount of wraparound plays throughout the season, never missing an opportunity to try to cut to the net from below the goal line. A lot of good reasons to be excited about him. And I like the idea of the Blackhawks taking a little bit of a reach in that later first round pick. When you get these later stages in the mid-20s of the first round, this is where you start taking those guys who are ranked 40, 50, whatever.
Yeah, and he's a guy, they haven't drafted anybody like him. And so he checks a lot of other boxes. They've looked at some skill guys, they've looked at, some flashy skaters, but he's a guy, he checks all the other boxes, things that you're not necessarily looking for in a first round pick, but you can build the goal scoring, you can build the skating. But when you've got a guy that can come in and just impose on a line, and it opens up ice for other players.
Yeah, very well said. That's exactly what Chicago would love to see, I think. So, Michael, that does it for your selections. I could put everyone back at the end for a big wrap up here, if you want to stick around a little while longer. But that is your final selection. So thanks for making your picks on behalf of the teams that you represented.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Data. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to get this together. And so hopefully everybody else had a blast. And I guess we'll see next Friday, how the board falls.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be keeping this document in the Discord server to see who got what and where. I think Capitan of the Canadiens is the biggest slam dunk of the whole thing. But aside from that, there's a lot of question marks. All right, so we'll go to Golden again. Golden at 26, making the last pick for the Predators. Yes, from the Vegas Golden Knights, correct. So at pick 26, where are you going with this one, Golden?
I feel like I'm turning into an NHL 25 GM with these picks, with some of them, just because of where I'm going. I went forward with Hagens. I went another forward with Reshny for the Predators. And now I'm going defense, and I'm thinking about the brother of Hunter Brucewitz, Henry Brucewitz from the London Knights.
Hey, we just spoke about spelling. You go ahead and talk a little bit why I make sure I spell this right.
Brucewitz, 6'1", about just around 200 pounds, a little bit less, 42 points in 67 games. A little bit of a good defensive forward, a little bit of I feel an offensive defenseman type of presence for him. If you look at Nashville, they have basically no defensive prospects. So I feel like you could really use somebody like a Brucewitz to kind of help you out in the defensive caliber, especially with your defense right now, looking at Roman Josi, Brady Shea, and then not a whole lot. It kind of drops off right afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. You think about brothers. It's always like, Cale Makar's brother, he's going to be just as offensive. Oh, not necessarily. Lane Hutson's brother, actually, yeah, Cole Hudson, he's looking good. So then you have the Brucewitz brothers. I wouldn't say Henry's probably as high of an upside offensively, but definitely still that offensive part to his game. 42 points in 67 games with the London Knights, a high activity blue liner with a well-rounded toolkit who looks to create on every puck touch, particularly off the rush, but details need refining. Shades of Rasmus Sandin, I think that's pretty accurate. Again, my limited knowledge. Rasmus Sandin has those same offensive flashes and upside potential, but at the end of the day, more that two-way guy, at least so far in his career. So Brucewitz does show that potential. Will he tap into it more moving into his career? Will he find comfort more in a two-way game? I wonder. But at 6'1", he's a right shot defenseman capable of playing a solid two-way game and has the foundation necessary to transform into a high-end prospect over time under the influence of the London Knights. Plays a quiet and supportive type of game, rotating head of plays, denying the middle, pushing opponents wide, all that good stuff. And that's why he's ranked as highly as he is. Now, 38th actually by elite prospects, but I think he could definitely be a first-round prospect selected. Yeah. All right, so there's Brucewitz. That will leave you with one more pick for the Hurricanes. So we'll check back in with you in a little bit, and we'll go now to Dice, who selects for his rival team, one of his rival teams, the Washington Capitals, here at pick 27.
I'm going to attempt to be as impartial as I can here. When you think about the Washington Capitals, this is another team that has focused on size lately, and we've seen in the playoffs, whether it's Florida or Edmonton, size on the back end, mobility on the back end is prevalent. And when I look at Washington's roster, their defensive core is not young. Like they've got a number of guys on the right side that are 30 and older. John Carlson, Matt Waugh, JVR. And you just mentioned Cole Hudson. He's probably going to get a look there sooner rather than later. I think the next wave of that is going to be this player, which, sorry, Data, it's Max Pasenica, I believe is how you say it. He's number 31 for elite prospects, if that helps you find it. Big right-handed shot defenseman. Those are always in demand. This guy seems to be an above-average skater and actually can move the puck fairly well. Those are the two things you want in a defenseman. He's big, he's physical, he'll control the ice and let the other bigger forwards on Washington continue to do what they do.
Yeah, I like that selection a lot. And thankfully, I'm just going to type it in with English lettering, American English lettering. I'm not going to put any of the the letters that I would
Cyrillic
have to
lettering.
Yeah, the Cyrillic. I'd have to go and copy paste it from somewhere else on the internet. I'll just type it in with the letter normal S and C. That being said, perhaps the draft's biggest second half riser, this high-paced breakout wizard adapted to the WHL instantly and still has more to give offensively. So at 6'4", 176. So it's interesting. He goes more in the category of the guy who has size, but not quite the. So he has the height, not quite the size yet. 6'4", 176. We're seeing other guys who are 6'4", 6'3", and 200 plus. So can definitely put on some more size. But he does, all that to say, he does still play a physical game. 7.0 on the 9-point scale. So imagine when he puts on even more, how much more imposing he'll be. He is a playoff-style defenseman, high-paced, physical, fearless, and intelligent. No matter the situation, he never stops battling. He gives himself a chance to impact every play with his motor, and he's always willing to absorb punishment to make a play. So I like that a lot positionally for the Capitals. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think he'd be the type of player that you'd love to get with a late first-round pick, who might not be your flashy top-pair guy, but he'll be a guy that you can rely on for maybe their entire career. I'm talking like 10-plus years as a guy who you rely on and appreciate as your third, second-pair guy. So I like that for Washington. Thank you. And that
I've
does
got one
it.
more. So I'll see you later.
Okay. I was going to save the tearful goodbyes. Very good. So I'll see you at 32 again. Very nice. So we go back to Hobbsy. Speaking of tearful goodbyes, it's Hobbsy's last pick. He's picking at 28 for the Winnipeg Jets.
Someone say defenseman. We're going to go with a third straight defenseman off the board. I got scared when Dice said Washington was taking a defenseman because I thought he was going to take the Jets guy. But we're going to go with Sasha Boumedienne, I think.
Boumedienne.
But
I don't know. Is he French Canadian? I don't know.
No, he's Swedish.
Right. Yes. Sorry. He's Swedish, but is it like a French name?
It sounds French Canadian. I'm not entirely sure.
Allô, Monsieur Boumedienne. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Boumedienne.
But this is very similar to Seattle, where the Jets have a fair number of forwards, but their defensive prospect pipeline is lacking a fair bit. So with their late first year, they're going to grab a defenseman. It could be a slight reach, but I don't think it's too bad. He improved a whole lot over the course of the season. Kept getting much better as he transitioned into the NCAA. He still has things to work on, like skating, but he could work on that. And Elite Prospects here says as the year went on, he morphed into more of a shutdown defenseman, game full of physicality and open ice and on the perimeter, well-timed stick release disruption, quick reads, proactive movement.
They call him a transition ace. They're very high on the incisive breakout passing as he grew in confidence and details throughout the season. Now he looks capable of filling a two-way role in the NHL. So I remember hearing about Boumedienne actually a long time ago, and by a long time ago I mean like more like maybe this time last year when they're talking about the prospects of 2025. And I feel like he's dropped a little bit. I don't know if I'm being too harsh in saying that. I feel like he's dropped off a little bit. But I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think he has dropped a little bit from last year. But
right, from last, not that he's had a bad year or that people aren't, impressed with him anymore. But I think there was more hype around him than like a late first round pick. Am I correct in saying that, I think?
I think so, yeah. Also, as Cagney says here, it's tough to judge him as a 17-year-old in the NCAA.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. He did really well in the USHL as a 16-year-old. Big jump to the NCAA, though. Yeah, great points there. That's why we work well as the hive mind. Now, I like that pick for the Jets, though. Again, coming down positionally, Washington, it fits for a defenseman. Winnipeg, it fits for a defenseman. Columbus fits for a goalie, stuff like that. I like when it kind of matches up in that way. So we're not just saying best player, best player, best player, best player. There's some reaches. There's some thinking behind the process. So I like that for Winnipeg. Hobbsy, we'll save our goodbyes for the end. I'll get everybody back in here. But thank you for selections this evening. You represented your teams very well.
All right. We'll see you in a bit.
Yes, and we'll go ahead and get to Golden's last pick now, as he is representing the Carolina Hurricanes for the 29th overall pick.
All right. Well, Carolina at pick 29. With the fact that they have $26 million in cap space, don't be shocked if they find a way to trade this pick and try to get a playable forward to kind of help out their team. I think, well, with the money, I think they've got a good chance of possibly doing things for free agency as well. But with the amount of prospects that they have, which are very limited, I think that they might try to potentially keep it if they don't find a way to trade it, obviously, because that's the only two options you could do. So I'm going a little bit off of the board with this one. I'm taking William Moore from the USDP on that one.
I gotta say, I forgot about him. That's a good pick.
Yeah, he was a guy who definitely had first round potential. He was ranked 43rd on Tankathon. He's kind of dropped a little bit more to second round potential based off of everybody else starting to rise up. But a guy who was definitely considered to be going mid to late first round beforehand. 64 games, 59 points, 27 of them being goals. I think he's a guy on Carolina, a guy for Carolina who could help them, especially in the center district. Because if you like for centers, they've got obviously Sebastian Aho, but outside of that, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Jordan Staal, potentially Logan Stankoven if he isn't on the right wing, and maybe Jack Roslovic, but otherwise not a whole lot of center pieces that they could use. So maybe a guy like William Moore could fit into middle six, maybe bottom nine, something like that could really help them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. William Moore. It feels so Carolina as well to somehow have a late pick and then come away with a super skilled player. Like, how do they keep getting away with this with like Aho when he came with like a second round pick and all this? I don't know how the Hurricanes, and I digress. But William Moore, a skillful forward with a quick processor, hard shot, fluid hands, and an ever-improving physical game. Middle six potential, but lots of development remains. So that's it. Like, if his ceiling is being a middle six guy, that's fine. You need six middle six guys on your team. You need to have those guys. And not everyone you get, especially at this point, is going to be your upside first liners. If his upside is just being a great third liner, maybe even a second liner, then that's fine. But will they be able to get that potential? Just because it's there doesn't mean it's going to get there. So 2 years ago, William Moore was among the elite in this draft class. That's why I forgot about him, I got to say. A dynamic center with skill refinement beyond his years. He looked like a strong bet to remain a top player in the coming years, but that didn't quite happen. Though he never took the next step in his 2 years with the National Team Development Program, top-end potential still remains. Moore does a bit of everything from high-end plays right down to the finest details. In his best games, he manipulates defenders with driving crossover rushes, lands look-off passes, no-look passes, crashes the net, and puts on a down-low clinic with possession. Whoever writes these, man, they're on thesaurus.com.
They got some words, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got words. So I like that a lot for William Moore. I think whoever gets him, because definitely someone's getting him like 20 plus. I'd be shocked if someone reaches for him in like the teens or something. So definitely someone's getting him somewhere in the 20s or 30s, and someone's going to, the fans of that team will say yes.
Yeah, I like what Dice said as well for that. I think you just pulled it up. A menace along the wall and in front of the net. Yeah, that is a Carolina Hurricane.
Just good everywhere except the conference finals. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Also, Hobbsy pointed as well. I was thinking about it. Take the Russian. It feels very Carolina. I did think about it, but I went with Moore instead.
I was just scrolling through just as you were speaking, just looking at some other names that are like ranked around where Moore is in like the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. I'll save the names for after, but there's a lot of names who like, I guess probably a bit of my franchise mode mind, but there are a lot of names that I've just kind of forgotten about over the last year or 2 years who I once created, let's say for my NHL 23 roster. And I forgot that they were once so highly regarded. Now here they are at 50 or 60. So although the draft class is like, quote, a weaker class, the top players from this class, let's say the top 10, I'd say 5 of them comes from, 40 plus in the future when you look at this draft class 10 years down the road.
Absolutely.
So I'll leave you off there, Golden. We'll see you at the end. We have 3 more picks to go. We'll catch up with you and everybody else in the same all on the chat or the StreamYard, I'm trying to say. But now we'll go back to Jiggles, who now selects for his San Jose Sharks at 30th overall.
Yeah. So this is an interesting spot for the Sharks, because the tier, what I was hoping would happen is the big need is on D, and of course it didn't work out because Islanders took Schaefer. And then I was hoping one of Boumedienne or Brusevich would fall, because what is I wouldn't say it's a gaping hole, but what's a big hole in the Sharks pipeline? Defensive depth. Like you got Dickinson, you got some intriguing prospects like Luca Cagnoni and whatnot, maybe Leo Sully Milanius, but do they really have blue line depth in the system? Not enough, especially when you look at all the forwards and having a goalie in Askarov. Maybe that's just me as a Shark fan being very spoiled with prospects, but so that's off the table. So I think there are more like competitive forwards that the Sharks could get at 33. I think in an ideal world, this pick would be traded for some immediate help to give Celebrini and Eklund and Smith more friends on the team, like talented friends. But we're going to assume no trades. And so I'm going to go with, I think there's more forwards that will be available at 33 that I'd be comfortable with. So at pick 30, we're going to go with defenseman Simon Wong, Simon Wong out of the Oshawa Generals. He is a very raw defenseman, 6'6", 215, similar in vibe to the McQueen pick for Buffalo. He may be a complete bust, but if he hits his upside, you got someone with a lot of physical tools.
I don't know if I'm blind.
You can just put Simon Wong.
There it is.
W-A-N-G.
Oh, yeah. Oh, because his name is not spelled as Simon, that's why.
Yeah.
H-A-O-X-I.
O-X-I.
H-A-O-X-I. Yes. A-O-X-I. Very interesting. So yes, it ranked 49th by Elite Prospects. Shades of Alex Vlasic. And I think if you ask Blackhawks fans, if you were to say, hey, this guy has shades of Alex Vlasic, is that good? I think they'd say, yeah, that's very good. Because Alex Vlasic has been doing a lot of things very right and been eating a lot of minutes and having larger responsibilities for the Blackhawks. If the Sharks could have a guy like that on, like, let's say, their second pair, who's already 6'5.5", 215 pounds, 7.0 for the skating despite his size, an enormously gifted skater with massive play-killing potential and flashes of vision, the biggest development project in the draft, but unique potential. So that's what you take at points like this, especially with a deep prospect pool. His range is 28 to 75, so quite a range, we do have to say. And yeah, 6'6" frame almost, high-end skating, rare combination, extremely valuable in professional hockey. In Wong, you get the advantages of size without the usual drawbacks that come with it. He can flex his lower body, bringing his knees over his toes, and drop his upper body at just the right angle to enable fast and smooth lateral pivots, crossovers, and backward strides. How about that?
Yeah, honestly, I'll be honest, this is more my selfish pick. I don't know if the Sharks would go with him personally. I think, but at this point in the draft, especially in a class where it really opens up, you just gotta. I am in the sense of you take the upside swings and go from there.
I like that. Agreed. All right, so we'll save the tiers again for the end. I'll save all my big thank yous at the end, but I appreciate all their picks making here, Jiggles, especially with the time difference. Thanks for making the time tonight.
My pleasure.
Great, and we'll go now to my pick for the Flyers on behalf of Derek. Let me just see who the best player available at this position is, because that's what he had told me is likely what he would want to see. Might be this guy, eh? Might be that guy. So Derek was saying he was pretty much gave me a lot of leeway here. He expects the Flyers to go goalie, and I think the next available one would be Alexei Medvedev. But he also had another player in mind, and that was, again, if I could just find him, he's ranked 57th, William Horkoff. 57 by Elite Prospects, William Horkoff. I'm going to go with him as the pick, even though there's a couple other ideas. He gave me 3 or 4. I think William Horkoff would please Derek. 6'4" 3/4, a rare midseason jump from the national team development program to the NCAA proved to be the right call for this towering pass-first forward with defensive upside. Skating is the question, as always. So he's a left-wing centerman, versatile tactician, low on the skating, but high on the physical, the passing, the sense, all that good stuff. 8 points in 19 games with the development program, 10 points in 18 games with the University of Michigan. And yeah, so there are centers in this draft with NHL frames, and then there's William Horkoff at 6 foot 4.75. Horkoff, the son of longtime NHLer Sean Horkoff, simply towers over his opponents. Let's see. Defensive defenseman stands out as a separator. His game is fueled by physical skill and proactive reads, and his range, strength, and subsequent lane clogging further enhance his disruption qualities. Off the back check, he's a Goliath, pressuring puck carriers to the outside, swinging into inside positioning and leveraging positioning and processing to create stops. He's a nightmare to handle because of his details off the perimeter. If you try to pin him in place, he'll just free his stick top and make a play. There you go. William Horkoff to the Flyers as pick 31, but there was a few names that Derek threw out my way. So I said, let's go with that. Let's see. Sorry, let me go back to some of the chat. Defensemen don't pass. Oh, that's why. So yeah, Ivankovic is also Ivankovic. Ivankovic is also would be up there. Yeah, he's been a highly ranked goalie too. I've seen a mock that had Simeon Frolov to the Flyers here as the second goalie off the board. Yeah, him too. So maybe I just missed a goalie in the ranking. Cagney talking about Horkoff says Horkoff had one of the more interesting seasons I've seen. Would have thought he'd be hard pressed to get drafted before his performance at Michigan, but his skating is rough. EP has Ivankovic at 109. That does feel a bit low. All right, so we'll close it off back with Dice one more time, who's selecting with the Calgary Flames at 32. If I give Horkoff to the Flyers, hopefully Derek's okay with that. We'll see what Dice has to close off the first round of the draft.
Well, I think Calgary is going to have this is another fit. I feel like all of my picks today have really been about fit as much as they've been about BPA. But Calgary is going to take a hometown boy in Benjamin Kindle. This guy, to me, seems like a flame in that he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, that focused on skating and playmaking as much as scoring. Just seems like that would fit. It would be a good story. And, this is their second first-round pick. It's right at the end. So if he's still on the board, why not take him?
Okay, I like it. Benjamin Kindle, not Frindle. Benjamin Kindle, 5'10", center right wing, ranked 20th by Elite Prospects. So I think this would be a nice spot for Calgary to get him for sure. 6.0 on the skating, 6.5 on the passing and senses. Relentless pace, vision, mid-range scoring, and defensive details define this hard-working forwards game who shows shades of Clayton Keller. This is a good value pick, I think. He's in the range of 18 to 23, so 32 would be great for the Flames. Played for the Calgary Hitmen, scoring 99 points in 65 games. Benjamin Kindle can't stop scoring. After 60 points as a WHL rookie, he became one of the league's elite scorers, finishing 7th in overall points and 6th in even strength points per 60. Though undersized, he's 5'10". He has the right blend of skills to make the NHL in a scoring role. Pace, vision, and translatability are Kindle's calling cards. With feet that never stop moving, he weaves through traffic, draws defenders, and works give and go. There's a lot to say about him, but they like the hockey sense in him, and the flaws in his game are few and far between, but tools and technical skills could improve. So for 32, hometown guy as well. I like that. Jiggles also says Bill Zonin would be at 33, by the way. There you go. Yeah, so many. Yeah, exactly. Zonin, Wozniak, so many guys. McKinney, a lot of guys to think about.
Thank you, Dice, for that last pick. Another name I'd put on that list.
Yes. Sorry, who was it?
Cullen Potter.
Yes, Potter, absolutely. So I'll add everybody. How many can I add back here at a time? Can I add everybody? Yes, I think we're all in here. So that does it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the stream and the mock draft from picks 1 to 32. We got it done in under 2 hours. So the real world takes 3 hours. Come on, guys. But there are selections. How many will accurately take place? How many will follow the same train of thought that we're going with? We'll have this in our Discord server, and we'll talk more about it on draft night. I don't know if we'll have live draft coverage. Unfortunately, this might be the best that I can give you, the mock draft, because I'll be out of the country on the draft night itself. I always hate to not be able to cover live stuff like the trade deadline or the free agency. But sadly this year, I say sadly, it's because I'm, taking care of a wedding, so it's not that sad. But unfortunately for the viewers, this year might not be able to happen. So you'll have to just enjoy the mock draft coverage, and then we'll talk from there. So to the drafters and the imaginary managers, I thank you all for being here. And, any closing thoughts on the draft that was? Anybody want to say anything about their teams, who they thought the biggest standouts were? Which team maybe came away with the best deals?
In a draft like this, where everyone keeps calling it a weaker draft, I still have this gut feeling like we're going to see some cornerstone franchise guys come out of this draft. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be somewhere on this list in the first round. But I feel like every time we go through a weak draft, there's 2 or 3 cornerstone guys that came out of that draft to slightly elevate how it's looked today. And I think that this draft is going to be one of those.
Yeah, it's true. You go in Hockey DB, you sort by points, and you say, "Oh, the guy fourth in points was drafted 152nd," like stuff like that. This is one of those classes, I think, where you're going to see guys like that coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree.
Yeah, somebody here is going to score a bunch of points, but it's hard for the scouts to tell whether that's going to be the guy picked 10th or the guy picked 45th. Nobody's standing out. It's making their job hard.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Another thing I see with this draft too is, I feel like after 10, everything's kind of up in the air. But I think that difference between 11 and 40 isn't as wide as the difference between 1 and 11.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think my tier probably, like, if let's say this was the real draft class, I think probably 11 is where I see things change a lot. I think Brady Martin kind of closes off that second tier where, like, you could see a guy go at 5 or go at 10. After that, it could be who knows who's ranked 50th going at 12th and stuff like that. I think there's going to be some very interesting reaches, kind of like how we saw with a couple of Derek's picks or some of the other guys who are ranked more in the 50 range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can talk about this draft all night long, but eventually we got to just wait and see what the real world is going to bring our way. So I thank you all for being here. Can I go like this? There you go. I thank you all for being here. Our channel members, special guests. Hey, here are some of the perks of being a channel member, ladies and gentlemen. On top of the loyalty badges and the emojis and the access to the exclusive Discord channel and all that. So here are some of one of these things that hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit more of. So Mike had the idea. We went ahead and did it. Any other channel members, if you ever have an idea like this or something similar, whatever it might be, throw it out there. Let's see what the channel members think about it, and we'll get it done. We had a lot new ones joining in, as Cagney had gifted 5 in our last stream. Today, marathon of streams, 4 different streams that came our way, 5 yesterday, if you include yesterday's with Backyard Baseball. So I'll take Sunday to relax a little bit. We'll be back with a couple more videos before the end of June. Then I'll be gone for about a week or so, and then into the summer schedule and all that with summer honeymoon and everything coming my way. So,
hey, congrats, buddy.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate that.
Yes, congrats.
Thanks, guys. It's especially with who's talking here. For the majority of you, if not all of you, I'd say you've all been a part of the channel for a long time, just as viewers and as commenters and as contributors. So it feels crazy to think that this channel started when I was in my second year of university. Now I'm graduated, a full-time employee, engaged, but the channel stays the same. That's nice to have that constant in my life, especially for you guys who are so involved in the series and in the content. And we're just having a good time out there. Whether it's 2 people listening or 600 people listening, it's always been the same. And that's what I appreciate with you, especially as co-hosts, making my job a little bit easier. That's the nice part of building a community. So we'll end it off there. Thanks everybody for listening. And we got more flags and more merch for everybody. Everyone's gonna have their profile picture be a picture of their merch next year around. All right, everybody, have a great end to your week. Well, rest of your weekend. It's only Sunday morning, technically Saturday night Eastern. Have a great weekend ahead. It's going to be really hot where I am, so get outside, enjoy the fresh air, be active, stay hydrated, and we'll get excited for the draft coming up soon as well. JJ Paterka trades, all stuff like that. A lot coming in the real world of hockey. We'll be keeping track of it along the way, and we'll be live when possible. So thanks again for being here. Leave your thoughts in the comments on the draft that we put together. What are your differences or maybe agreements? And we'll see for the draft itself how everything unravels. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
That's a pleasure.